Good morning, 8th graders. Today's April 27th, 2020. I have no idea anymore how many days we are into our at home schooling. But today we're going to focus on going back to that idea of big business and big money. Excuse me, a little frog in my throat. Bill Gates. So we're kind of coming forward in history a little bit, but this guy's a historical figure. So we're going to take a look at something called the Bill Gates wealth clock. This is something I usually like to spend about a 50-minute block of time on, but I'll condense it down for today. And don't forget, you have a Zoom today at either 10:30 or 12:30. I'd like to see you there. Only about 5 or 6 of you left that still haven't taken your test, and those same 5 or 6 I really haven't heard from. So I hope they're still doing okay and they're not sick and they're still in Blair. But I don't know what's going on. I don't get emails returned. So tomorrow, Tuesday, there will be probably a short quiz, a 3-question quiz that will pop up again in Otis. And I'll give instructions on that tomorrow when we get a little bit closer. But the answers for that quiz will come out of tomorrow's video. So I've noticed that some of you are not watching the video. There's 167 students in the 8th grade, and I average about 120, but on Friday's video, 90 of you watched it. That means 70 people didn't do their assignment. And I'm not asking you to do very much. So if you can't watch the videos, you're not going to pass my quizzes. So I will put the answers. I'll embed them directly in the video. If you watch the video, you'll do just fine. So please make sure you're watching the videos. And you might have to watch all the way to the end. But I'm asking you to do 20 minutes of almost nothingness, mind numbing. Just sit and listen, watch the videos, maybe learn something that you find kind of interesting. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. I kind of get ahead of myself here. But the last thing we talked about last Friday, if you would have watched the video, we were doing a comparison with Rockefeller and Gates. Rockefeller from the early 1900s and Gates from today. And that data there says he was in 2018 worth $90.2 billion. And I think I talked about how that doesn't mean he had a vault full of $100 bills that equal $90.2 billion. That adds up the value of everything the guy owns, including airplanes and mansions and a swimming pool and tennis court and a Bugatti or Lamborghini or Mercedes. I don't know what the guy owns, but everything he owns, including and up to the value of the Microsoft stock that he owns, shares of Microsoft stock. So prior to this, a couple days ago, we were talking about corporations and shareholders. And this guy is a shareholder in many corporations. But his biggest corporation, his company, is Microsoft. So he owns, I don't know the majority of, but a lot of Microsoft. He even owns shares of Berkshire Hathaway. In fact, Bill Gates here, younger looking dude, I don't know if he's in his 50s or 60s, and Warren Buffett, like in his 80s, I don't know, they're like besties. And every now and then, Bill Gates will come to Omaha and they like to, I think it's Pinochle, the card game Pinochle that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett like to play. But if you look on here, Paul Allen in 1975, Paul Allen founded Microsoft with Bill Gates. So if we go back to that Forbes list that we were looking at last week, yeah, Paul Allen is on it. So these guys got super stinking rich, and he's diversified since. So all of the Microsoft stocks that he owns and all of the Berkshire Hathaway stocks, that's Warren Buffett's company that he owns, equal up to, along with all of the stuff that he owns, $90.2 billion in 2018. A little bit more today, even with the economic downturn that we've seen. But we did say, based on at least one format, that John Rockefeller was worth more. 2% of the net gross national product, which equals a lot, about $19 trillion. Keeping in mind that the U.S. has a deficit of about probably by now about 23 trillion, maybe a little bit more over the last couple of months. Which means our government spends way more than it brings in. And we can talk about that. I wish we were in class together to have a discussion about this. But there's only a couple ways to fix that. If you're spending way more than you're bringing in, There's really two things you can do. Three things. Stop spending, bring in more, which means raising taxes. Nobody's going to raise their hand and say, yeah, raise taxes. And nobody really wants to stop spending because that spending is nice stuff for us, roads and bridges and highways and schools and things like that. Rockefeller was really rich, and all those families that I mentioned, Carnegie, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, they've left a legacy for their grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren. They're still going to be rich without ever working. 4.4 times what Bill Gates would be worth. So I'm going to leave this slide up for a few minutes because this is pretty cool. I don't think I can blow it up because it just moves on. I should have made the words a little bigger. But since 1999, I've been pulling up data from a website, and I think I'll link the website in the stream today. So if you want, you can go to it and look at it, and it might give a little bit of a description. But it's called Bill Gates' Personal Wealth Clock. It's a little bit misleading because it's not entirely accurate, but it's given me something to compare this guy to over the years. And you'll know if you look at the dates on there, there's a few years that I've missed. Like it goes from 1999 to 2002. So I'm not sure what 2000 and 2001 were, but I don't have that data. But I print the sheet off, and it gives me more data than this, but I moved it over into this slideshow just for fun, for comparison. In our Zoom today, I'm going to give you some more data about Bill Gates that'll just kind of blow your mind. It's when we talk about someone that has so much money they can't even spend it, and some of you are like, yes, challenge accepted. I bet I could. Yeah, well, we'll talk about why you can't. So when we look at this, 1999, sorry for the little ding there. Bill Gates' wealth was estimated to be about $104.7 billion. At that time, I think that the population of the United States was about 292 million, which means if we took his $104 billion, theoretically, and divided it up, and he wrote a check to every American, man, woman, and child, each of us would get about $382. Well, look in 2002. He drops to $66 billion. He goes from $104 billion to, he lost $40 billion in that 3-year period, which means he would only have been able to, if he wanted to give away all of his wealth, if it was all cash and he was handing it out, each of us would get $230, man, woman, and child, every American. But look at that. Oh my gosh, poor guy. 2003, he's down to $26 billion. He lost another $40 billion. How can you lose $80 billion from 1999 to 2003? Well, there was an economic downturn, which means the value of the shares of stock that Bill Gates owned went down. Maybe the value of the property that he owned went down. But in those years, the value of a share of Microsoft dropped. And if that's where most of his money is held, his value dropped. Just like for Jeff Bezos, most of his value is held in Amazon stock, I would assume. So if we follow along, $80 billion. Now, do you feel bad for a guy that only has $26 billion? No, don't feel bad for him because most of us are never going to get there. 2004, 2005, very similar. But if he had the same amount in both years, why would the amount per person be different? It dropped a little. Yes, because the population grew. 2006, oh, good for him. He made $4 billion. Oh, and then in 2007, he made another $5 billion. 2009, I don't know, I skipped a year there. He dropped again. Well, in 2008, there was another little economic downturn. In fact, it was the last economic downturn that we've had up until just the last month or so. And the stock market dropped, I don't know, fast, a lot. So Bill Gates lost a lot of his wealth because the value of the shares of his stocks went way down. By 2010, it had mostly recovered. By 2011, the guy's still, it's kind of a up and down thing. Owning shares of stock is risky. Sometimes you make money, sometimes you don't. It's speculation. 2013, he had $63 billion. Oh, well, he has a pretty good year. 2015, $109 billion. 2017, $144 billion. 2019, I skipped a year. $258 billion. In 2020, $397 billion. Now that Forbes article put him at like $100 billion or something like that. So what's going on here? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. Maybe one of them factors something in that others don't. But it's just kind of a neat thing. And I'm going to assume, since the same guy has created the website since 1999, that it's a familiar tracker, something that we can use to gauge his wealth over time. So in a 20-year period, not quite a 20-year period, well, a 21-year period, Bill Gates has amassed a fortune. Why the major changes? Well, we talked about that. Economic downturns, the value of the price of a share of Microsoft stock, the growth in the population, all sorts of things play into that. What does some of these changes tell us about the state of our economy? Well, even if I didn't tell you that in 2008 we had an economic recession, the Great Recession they called it, in an 18-month period, the value of the stock market, I think it dropped like by 2/3. So if you had money in the stock market, you lost a lot of it. Now, if you left it there, it came back, just like Bill Gates, his wealth came back. Is it accurate representation? I don't know, probably not. But again, it gives us a cool comparison. And again, can you even imagine this kind of money, this filthy, stinking, huge quantities of money? I have a difficult time thinking in terms of millions, let alone billions or even trillions. So this is a massive quantity of wealth. And again, that's what I want to talk about in the Zoom tomorrow. This is kind of cool. Bill and Melinda's his wife, give away about $30 million a year in philanthropy. A lot of their money goes to purchase computers and computer software for underprivileged youth, especially in other countries. So getting internet access to people that have no internet access. And they've both pledged, along with Warren Buffett, to give 95% of their fortune to charity when they die. So I don't know how many children the Gateses have. Buffett has children. His children have money. In fact, when Warren Buffett dies, which probably will be before Bill and Melinda because Mr. Buffett is relatively old, most of his money is going to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So he's trusting his bestie Bill to find a way to spend his billions of dollars. Warren Buffett's going to give it away. As of August 2017, they'd given away $50 billion since the year 2000. So in 17 years, $50 billion. That's philanthropy, just giving it away. Look at this. That's $7.6 million a day. That's $316,000 an hour. K means 1,000. $5,277 a minute. They have given away $88 per second for that time period from 2000 to 2017. Their foundation today is worth about $41 billion. Foundation just means a trust or a place they put money that they plan to ultimately eventually give away for philanthropy, for the public good. So we'll shift gears and look at Buffett. I didn't pull up any today 2000 numbers for Warren Buffett, but you can look it up if you want to, but on the Forbes list. But look at this guy. In 2016, January of 2016, he was worth about $60 billion. A year earlier, $72 billion. So yeah, he lost money in the stock market. 85 years old in 2016. That means he's 90 something now, 91? Or 89, I guess. It's 4 years later. 89 years old. His source of wealth. It says self-made. Now, neither Warren Buffett or Bill Gates were born poor. Buffett was fortunate enough that he was able to go to college. In fact, he's a graduate of University of Nebraska. But most of his money was self-made. When he got out of college, he went to work for his dad as a stockbroker, buying and selling shares of stock. But if I go back a little further, his family business, way before he was old enough to do anything about it, they owned a grocery store in Omaha. I don't know what it was called. It doesn't matter. He started working when he was 11, and the money he made at the grocery store at the time when he was 11, which was a long time ago, the first shares of stock he purchased at 11 years old were $38 a share. So 11 years old, 14-year-olds can own shares of stock. I have Taryn invested in some shares of stock and Tannen invested in some shares of stock, mostly speculative. They also have college accounts that money is put aside, that I put money aside in shares of stock for them so that they can eventually, hopefully, go to college. At least that's the goal right now. So, how did he make his wealth? Well, he invested in stock. By the time he graduated high school, Warren Buffett had accumulated enough wealth that he purchased part of a 40-acre farm along with some other guys. He's a landowner as a high school graduate. He also had pinball machines and vending machines all over the city of Omaha, which wasn't that big of a city. It was a big city, but it wasn't that big. But what he would do is he'd buy a gumball machine or a pinball machine, and he'd convince a business owner, starting with his family store, let me put it in here. They'd let him. He'd make money, he'd take the quarters, and most of us, especially teenagers, high school people, when you make money, you spend money. You want to go shopping, you want to go to scooters. Um, you want to buy cool stuff, or you buy gas for the car, you buy a new car, or we want nicer things. Yeah, Warren Buffett, instead of spending any of his money that came out of his or his pinball machines or his gumball machines, he'd buy more, and then he'd go to another store, and he started building his fortune that way. Shortly after college, going to work for his father for a little while, gets a better job, makes his first real job outside of the family business, made about $13,000 a year, which by today's standard isn't very much, but by the standard of the time was a lot of money. So this guy really knew what he was doing. Self-made means he figured out how to do it. Known as the oracle, or an oracle, sort of like a prophet. He can foretell the future, sort of, in a way, when he buys and sells stuff. One of the most successful investors of all time. When Warren Buffett talks about investing, everybody in the world listens, because if he thinks it's a good idea, it's probably a good idea. Berkshire Hathaway owns, 60 companies. Geico, which used to stand for Government Employees Insurance Corporation. It was mostly a military insurer. He owns Duracell. There are people, I've never been there when he's been there, but that have actually seen Warren Buffett at Dairy Queen. He likes ice cream. Likes ice cream and Coca-Cola. He also owns shares of Coca-Cola. He owns the majority of Burlington, or a major stake of Burlington Northern Railroad Company. His father was in Congress during World War II. 99% of his fortune will be given to charity, and so far in his lifetime, he's given over $32 billion. So, and he started this thing with Bill Gates, where they're trying to get the super filthy, stinking rich people like him to give more of their money to charitable causes upon their passing. So when we look at Buffett, when he was 14, he had about $5,000. Well, 85 years ago, $5,000 was a lot of money. I don't know how much, but it was a lot. Um, but it takes him until he's, look at that, at 26, so shortly after college, you've got $140,000. So between 21 and 26 years old, the guy saved $120,000. At the age of 30, he had over $1 million. Now, Warren Buffett had, as a college student, told people that he would be a millionaire before he hit the age of 30, or he would jump off the tallest building in Omaha. So luckily he hit that number. But then look here, he's only got at the age of 47. Okay, Mr. Bellamy's 45, Mrs. Castrop's 47. So at 44, he had $19 million. Well, he's a lot ahead of me, and that's a long time ago. He doesn't get super rich until his 50s. So most of his fortune comes here. That's kind of hard to say, because it looks like there's nothing here, but we're talking millions from the time he's 30 on. And a lot of this is because of risks that he takes. So this is an outdated list, but it's kind of the similar order, except for these guys. Some of these guys have been jumped a little bit, but this is from 2018, so I didn't update it. February of 2018, and I showed you the list from Forbes magazine the other day, and we looked at maybe the top 10. It's really kind of a fun thing to do. Michael Bloomberg, you just heard of him. He was a presidential candidate for a little while, one of the richest men in the world. Anyway, Waltons. and that'll take us into immigration and modern urban growth. So please log into my Zoom today at 10:30 or 12:30. I need to talk to you just a few minutes about Bill Gates. I'm going to give you some fun information and share with you some information about the test that you'll take for me, or the quiz. It's a 3-question quiz, not a big deal. Don't stress out about it. That you'll take for me on Tuesday. If you watch the video on Tuesday, easy peasy lemon squeezy. You guys have a great day.